In today's final thoughts video, we're going to take a look at some differential picks, a viewer question, captaincy options, as well as a final look at my FPL team. So let's jump into another Fantasy Premier League video. Welcome to the final thoughts video. In this section, we're going to cover some differential picks that I quite like for this week and future weeks to come. Of course, I cannot include absolutely everyone on this list, so there are some great options that are missing. But what I've tried to do is, of course, all of these players are under 10% ownership. I've tried to pick some off the sort of higher end of that spectrum, sort of the 9% area from Dwight McNeil there, and sort of the very low area of the spectrum with Lewis Potter there of 0.1% ownership. So let's go through the players, have a little chat about them all, and then why I think they're kind of good options sort of this week and for future game weeks. We'll start off with Heung-min Son on that left-hand side there. Just coming back from international break, Postecoglou has mentioned that he expected Son with his injury to be, flying after this international break. There's sort of an interviewer clip going around at the moment speaking about his injury. Everything seems to be okay with him. There is a slight doubt from fantasy football here with the 75% chance of playing. Perhaps we see reduced minutes this game week. But I would say, the fixtures coming up are pretty decent for Spurs. There's maybe, I would say, 2 coming up before game week 14 that I don't particularly like too much. But even then, the Man City fixture that we're speaking about there, Spurs have done it in the past where they've scored goals against that side. So for me, I think Heung-min Son is sort of a premium option, being such a low % ownership right now. It could be sort of a differential move to pick Son as your premium midfielder and go away from someone like Bukayo Saka, who does have difficult fixtures coming up. But yeah, I do think Son is a decent pick this game week, but I would recommend just look out for any late injury news or a sign that he possibly doesn't start. But I do expect him to get slightly reduced minutes against West Ham, but we will see at the end of the game week how that went. McNeil next. For me, McNeil, with sort of the fixtures that he's got coming up, I'll pull them up just now. 6.2 million, 9.2% ownership, sort of on the higher end of that 10% spectrum that I've chose to pick from. For me, it's purely just fixtures. Yes, he's been scoring some goals here. You can see he scored 3, assisted 2. The fixtures are just great. I feel as though Everton, yes, they have had a poor start to the season, and hopefully these fixtures can kind of pick their form back up and get some confidence under the belt. And I feel as though a player like Dwight McNeil could benefit from these fixtures greatly. Someone like Calvert-Lewin as well, I should bring up as well. I mentioned him in a previous video this game week. I do think there is a little bit more upside in Dwight McNeil, even though Dominic Calvert-Lewin is on penalties. So yeah, for me, this is probably going to be my personal transfer this game week. I'm kind of just waiting and assessing, is that really the move I want to make? Because yeah, I'll explain at the end of the video a little bit more about my team, but the plan is to get Cole Palmer next week, and it would be the case that I would have to get Dwight McNeil next week to afford that. But I do think he is a decent differential option going forward, especially when you consider sort of the fixtures that we've got coming up. We'll pull up Lewis Potter's fixtures just for you right now, but of course 5 million there, 0.1% ownership, an absolute crazy differential. But let's kind of bring up why I think he's a decent option to bring in. Not necessarily the best option, but a decent option. For the last 4 game weeks, of course, playing 90 minutes every single game. Get an assist against Wolves, an assist with Spurs there as well. Of course, 2 assists across the season. We'll pull up his fixtures there. Again, similar to Mbeumo, if you own Mbeumo, the fixtures are really good for Brentford. It's kind of just when you get to game week 14, they tend to get really poor. So it's perhaps a game week 8 to game week 13 move you're looking for here. There is news that Wissa is back on grass training, and I believe their new striker, I'm a bit confused with his name, but I believe he could be Brazilian. It seems that he's back in training as well, so it could knock out Lewis Potter in terms of his contention in perhaps 2 or 3 weeks, but maybe. But when you look at sort of the fixtures coming up in the next 2 or 3 weeks, you've got Manchester United away, which obviously isn't the best fixture, but for Brentford, I do think it's a decent fixture. Game week 9, a great fixture with Ipswich at home. Game week 10, Fulham away. So for me, Lewis Potter is an okay option this game week, and of course with that low percent ownership, you know, you can take a punt on him, I feel, especially maybe for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Just keeping in mind that other players are coming back from injury currently. We've got just next on the list here, Ethan Pinnock. Of course, 0.5% owned at 4.5 million. I'll just share sort of, obviously this is Keane Lewis Potter here, but it's really the fixtures that are getting me excited about Pinnock here. Of course, very low percent ownership, as all of these players are. But the fixtures are great. It's kind of just that block off at 14 where things get rough. But I feel as though if you've got him for the next 6 weeks, you could be looking at a great little player to be bringing in. Of course, he's on the cheaper side as well, so I really don't mind Ethan Pinnock coming up as well. We'll speak about Foden next. Of course, 9.2 million, him and Son, the more expensive players on this list, but still very low percent owned, 5.8% ownership on Foden. He went up from 5.7% ownership last night, I do believe, but he's starting to get a few more minutes, I feel. So in the last fixture, 77 minutes, of course, it's not perfect, but he is just coming back into the squad. And with De Bruyne, you know, confirmed to be out yet again, I feel as though Foden, he's probably going to have to step up and do sort of a role in that central area when Bernardo Silva would go off on that right-hand side. We sort of know the fixtures that are coming up for City. City, I just think, can perform in any fixture, but especially the next sort of 4 coming up are really great, especially for Foden, sort of in that central area. You know, Wolves have conceded many goals against good sides, good attacking sides, and of course Southampton at home there for game week 9. Possible triple captain option if you own Haaland, and you missed out on that game week 2 triple captain window. But yeah, Foden at 5.8% ownership did surprise me, but you know, obviously he hasn't been playing too much this Premier League season, so something just to keep, you know, an eye out on. It is a chance that he comes off around 80 minutes perhaps, but I do feel Pep's gonna need him to step up and play a lot more minutes. We'll bring up Brendan Johnson here as the last player on this list. 6.6 million, 6.3% ownership. Absolutely on fire, 3 goals and 2 assists so far this Premier League season. Of course, sharing the fixtures with Son, we've already seen these fixtures, but I do think these are decent fixtures going forward for Brendan Johnson. Of course, he is in my team, so there is a little bit of bias there, but I really do think he's a fantastic player. I'm not going to try and make this section too long. Of course, I have missed some excellent players from this list, like Bernardo Silva, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I would suggest is a decent pick. James Maddison as well, and I'm guessing I've missed some other great picks as well. So let me know in the comments who is your favourite differential in FPL right now. Now, in this section of the video, we're going to cover a viewer question here. The question was a little bit longer than this, but I've shortened it down just for the viewers at home. But if you are watching this and this is your question, I will still cover all of your points that you brought up. I will show his current team next, but the question was, my current team is, I'm thinking of bringing in Cole Palmer next week from -4. What changes would you make to improve my team? And we'll sort of look at the team he mentioned in his comment here. His plan was to transfer out Semenyo this game week with his 1 free transfer, and then he wants to move to Cole Palmer next week by selling Maddison and Watkins. So let's have a look at what I would personally do with his team. Of course, I've just altered my team on Fantasy Football Hub to look like his team. So the money in the bank and everything like that might not be the same, but I know the parameters I'm working with. So let's have a go. If I wanted to get Cole Palmer next week and I knew that, I would be picking someone around under 6 million-ish in the game. Maybe 6.2 even if we can squeeze out Watkins and Maddison. And Sort of the top picks that are coming up here are going to be probably Spurs midfielders, Everton midfielders, and perhaps Brentford midfielders as well, which is kind of what we're looking at here, actually. For me, I'm personally going McNeil this week, and my transfer is going to be Semenyo out, McNeil in, because I think the fixtures are great for a good few number of weeks, and of course McNeil does have great finishing quality about him. So for me, I think McNeil's a great option, and it's kind of around the same price as your Semenyo there. So personally, that's the transfer I would be making. There are some other great options. I am very tempted also by the move of Smith Rowe here. Of course, the Game Week 8 fixture isn't great, and he didn't play last game week, but I purely think that was because of the personnel that they were facing in Manchester City. I would really look to Smith Rowe, but for me, I'm slightly leaning more towards McNeil at the moment, but for me, ESR, Emile Smith Rowe, is a great option as well, and of course at the same price as McNeil. Now, he mentions in Game Week 9 that he wants to get rid of James Maddison and Ollie Watkins. I would mention, if you're watching this and that was your question, Maddison and Watkins do have good fixtures this game week, so it is something to think about when you're making this move for Cole Palmer. However, Cole Palmer is a great premium option, as everyone knows, so let's go ahead and sort of simulate that transfer for you. The move is to bring in Palmer, and then you had apparently 6.5 million for a forward, so I have 6.2 here, but we will filter by 6.5 million and have a look at sort of some of the options we've got going forward. And for me, there's a perfect option that is glaring me in the face, who I really do like from next week, Game Week 9 onwards, and that is Matheus Cunha. I believe that Cunha's fixtures coming up are really great, and they're great for a long time. Of course, Wolves have had probably the hardest fixture run going from the start of the season till now, in terms of who they've been facing. I think they're starting to come into their great fixtures coming up. I will sort of share some of them actually. He would be facing Brighton away in Game Week 9, which isn't the greatest fixture, but the way people are scoring against Brighton at the moment, I don't expect Wolves to sort of struggle finding a goal in that game. Palace, Southampton, Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton. I mean, listen to the personnel they're facing. It's sort of fantastic in my opinion, and it sort of fits exactly that criteria of price. Of course, we have to consider if Cole Palmer goes up in price, if Matheus Cunha goes up in price, you will be priced out of this move. So who is someone else a little bit cheaper who gives you a little bit more wiggle room with that 6.5 million? For me, it would be between Raul Jimenez and Calvert-Lewin. I personally think Calvert-Lewin, with the fixtures going forward, are great, but you do have Dwight McNeil in this sort of draft I've made for you, so perhaps Chris Wood comes up as the dominant option there, with the Leicester away fixture for that week, and sort of some two good fixtures after that. Of course, a slightly shorter term option than Cunha, but a little bit more wiggle room in terms of the money in your bank. But I do hope that answers your question. Of course, that is just my personal opinion of what I would do with this team. I always urge all of you who watch my videos to make your own decisions. Just because I think a move's good doesn't make it good, okay? I have my reasoning behind my moves and a reason behind how I play the game. But if you think that is completely wrong and you wouldn't make those moves and you would pick someone else, absolutely believe yourself. This is your game to have fun with. Don't always listen to me, even though that's why I make videos. Trust your gut sometimes. But I really hope you enjoy this game week, mate, and thank you so much for letting me share this question with my audience. I do believe people will be in the same boat as you this game week. Now I'm going to combine two sections for the captaincy section of this video. We're going to take a look first at the goal and clean sheet odds for game week 8, and then move into the best captaincy options in my opinion. So I think it's good to look at this first off, just to get an idea of some data behind some of the picks here. Man City dominating the goal and clean sheet odds for this week, so again a really great fixture for them. Liverpool and Spurs coming up as great options in terms of goal odds, and of course Arsenal and Forest as well coming up there for the clean sheet odds. Both great defensive teams, and of course it might surprise people, but Forest are a really great defence, and it's why I didn't bring in Cole Palmer last week, which did work sort of in my favour. We're going to look at sort of the predicted points for this game week coming up. We did have a look at this earlier on in the week, and the values have changed. So it's always great to keep on top of sort of the data that is coming out around these players. And of course, predicted points isn't exactly going to be always accurate, but it gives you an idea sort of based on data, minutes, and other aspects of what we can expect from the game week. Salah on top again against the Chelsea side. I think it's going to be a close game. I don't really expect there to be many goals in the game, if I'm honest with you, which it surprises me that Salah is so high on this list. But perhaps if you own Mohamed Salah, the chances are you don't own Erling Haaland now. I think those two premiums have kind of almost separated themselves from a lot of people's squads. It's just so expensive to have both of them, especially with them both going up in price. So perhaps Salah is your captain if you own Salah this game week. If you own Salah and you're not captaining him, let me know in the comments who else have you got in your squad that you are captaining. And of course, Erling Haaland next, who I think is the best captaincy option this game week with just how good the fixture is for City. Wolves have beaten City. It might have been last season or the season before, but they beat City it was away from home, I believe they beat them at some point recently, which surprised a lot of people. So Wolves have it in them to do a job against City, but the way they're playing and sort of how leaky they are at the moment, for me, Erling Haaland is a great option. Off the back of 2 blanks, he's going to be looking to get his goal tallies back up. The likes of Cole Palmer sort of catching up here and there, and Salah is around that sort of goal mark as well. So yeah, I am looking forward personally to captaining Erling Haaland this game week. Of course, Palmer is always going to be high up on this list. A player that can go ahead and score 4 goals in one match, which, oh my God, it was absolutely incredible when you look back at it. Of course, I do think it's just a difficult fixture for Palmer this week and Chelsea. Going away to Anfield and facing this Liverpool side, which honestly look really, really great under Slot. Perhaps there's going to be a little bit of struggle there. He scored sort of, I think it was a penalty against Liverpool perhaps last season. Nothing from open play, no assist or goal, I believe. So something to sort of consider, but in my opinion, you shouldn't really consider historical data too much because, look, anything can happen. Teams have changed, systems have changed, managers have come in. This is 2 new managers going against each other here, so the game could be completely different to how we expect it to go. But yeah, Cole Palmer is going to be high up on this predicted points list. And interestingly enough, the next 2 picks are sort of Chris Wood and Phil Foden. If sort of the issue with Chris Wood being on this list is I don't imagine a lot of people are going to be captaining Chris Wood this game week, especially because he is sort of on the cheaper end of the spectrum, and people are going to have the likes of Haaland, Salah and Palmer in their teams, who are probably better options in my opinion for captaincy. And of course, Foden popping up there, predicted to get around 75 minutes and is still predicted to score 6 points. So those are sort of the top 5 options there. You've kind of got some lesser predicted points options here on the first page here. Solanke, Maddison and Son, all Spurs assets popping up here. Saka, Gordon as well, getting a little bit of a sniff in on this list. But for me this week, it's really Haaland. That's my favourite captaincy option. Perhaps that is biased because I own him, but I do believe the data and sort of how the fixture is expected to go, it is a great fixture for City. So yeah, who are you captaining this game week? Drop it in the comments. Let me know. Right, for this section, we're going to take a final look at my squad before tomorrow's deadline. Of course, I will be doing a deadline stream tomorrow from 9 a.m. till around 11:30, where I will be going through my team many times and tinkering with it all morning. So we're going to have a little tinker with the squad now and sort of what I'm thinking of feeling about doing this game week in particular. Similar to the viewer's question before, Semenyo was my likely transfer out. I mean, the next 3 fixtures aren't great for Bournemouth, and I do believe it's kind of time to move on from Semenyo. There is a slight idea in my head where I could hold him on the bench, till game week 11 and then start playing him again. But I feel as though I can just transfer him back in later on, and perhaps my whole structure of my squad changes at that point. So for me, it is time to jump off Semenyo in my particular context with my team. In terms of a midfield option, I want a cheap midfielder under around 6.5 million. I'm sort of looking around McNeil or Emile Smith-Rowe. For the sake of the video and for what I've said so far, McNeil is my player that I'm leaning more towards. Smith-Rowe is getting a little bit more tempting as each day goes past, so yeah, I'm keeping an eye on that potential move, because I do think he is a fantastic player, and he's kind of, you know, coming out of his shell at Fulham. And yeah, I am keeping an eye on that move. But McNeil's fixtures are really fantastic for a good number of weeks. So someone you can kind of set and forget almost as a great player who can finish fantastically on his day. Sort of when we move into next week is sort of when you see that McNeil transfer come into play. It would be the case that I get rid of Bukayo Saka for the next 3 fixtures: Liverpool, Newcastle, and Chelsea, 2 of those away fixtures. And it would be the case that I go into Cole Palmer. But as you notice here, I only have 1.1 million in the bank. So if Palmer goes up in price, I will be screwed. I will be priced out of that move. And that's when you sort of look, how can I make money in this team? And for me, it would be Trent Alexander-Arnold. If he isn't performing the way I want him to, and I don't want to hold him for the next 3 fixtures of Arsenal, Brighton, and Aston Villa, I can just move away from him and go into someone else. I do quite like the look of Ethan Pinnock, who I mentioned in my differentials part of the video. A low % ownership, great fixtures coming up for a number of weeks, in my opinion. Do I think they've got the capacity to get clean sheets in these fixtures? I do think they do, but of course not as defensively strong as Trent would have been if I do have to move him on to afford Cole Palmer. It gives me a number of million in the bank to go into game week 10. And it's perhaps the idea then that maybe Ollie Watkins and Rodgers start to move on as their fixtures get more tricky. Maybe a midfield upgrade we could be looking at as well. But overall, sort of for the next 2 weeks, the plan is to get Semenyo out for a cheaper around the same price midfielder actually, and then game week 9 potentially move into Cole Palmer, because I think moving into Palmer around game week 9, yes, the fixtures aren't fantastic, but this is Cole Palmer we're talking about. He can perform in pretty much every fixture he plays. There are fixtures that he will probably blank in, and I do think perhaps this Liverpool fixture could be one of those fixtures, but Newcastle at home, I think it's a good fixture for Palmer, and Chelsea, I think it's a great fixture. Manchester United away, another one I think could be a great fixture. It's just Arsenal in 11 that is a little bit tricky, but even then you'll be holding them through to get to that Leicester fixture and that Southampton fixture later down the line. So the idea is to kind of jump on Palmer in game week 9 to avoid the massive price hikes coming up when that Leicester fixture hits, and kind of save myself some money, but also get Palmer in some fixtures that I think people won't really recognise are good fixtures because of the sort of colour of the fixtures here. I think Newcastle at home is a great fixture. I think Manchester United away is a great fixture for Chelsea, but I could be wrong. Who knows? But that's sort of my thoughts and feelings about the team. I will sort of just look at what the team will probably look like this week in particular with that McNeil transfer. Again, I will mention Emile Smith-Rowe is high up on that list and kind of is battling McNeil for that spot at the moment. It could be that someone else pops up in my head on the deadline stream, so make sure you tune in at 9 a.m. tomorrow before the deadline. Of course, we might get some early team news and things come out, and of course, all questions on the deadline stream are answered. So yeah, I look forward to seeing you on the deadline stream, and good luck for this game week, everybody. To outro every video, I like to give you guys at home a big thank you for supporting the FPL Mugs YouTube channel. Of course, if you have enjoyed today's video and this week's content, feel free to subscribe to the channel for future videos and weekly deadline streams. Of course, with the deadline being tomorrow, look forward to a deadline stream at around 9 a.m. till around 11:30, just after the deadline is finished. But that is everything for today's video. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.